Expedition Everest is one of the signature rides at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This is one of the most highly themed coasters in the world, taking riders in and around a picturesque mountain, and those visuals are paired with some shockingly forceful moments, making it arguably the most intense coaster at this Florida resort. Find out why in this review. Disney's Animal Kingdom opened back in 1998. While most people praise this park's beauty and abundance of zoological exhibits, it had a severe lack of rides. There were only 4 rides in the park's inaugural year, including just one thrill ride. Disney knew they needed to improve their offerings in this area. As a band-aid, they added Primeval Whirl in 2002, which were 2 Reverchon spinning coasters placed side by side. These were off-the-shelf clones typically found at smaller parks, but they were spruced up by some cartoonish signage here. These rides still felt sorely out of place at a Disney park. The e-ticket that Animal Kingdom desperately needed was announced on the park's 5th anniversary in 2003. Disney announced Expedition Everest for the 2006 season. The ride would have an astronomical budget of $100 million, making it the most expensive coaster ever until Universal opened Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure in 2019. The coaster was supplied by Vekoma, but a lot of that cost went to the theming. Everest took 3 years to construct, as the park built a 199.5 foot or 60.8 meter tall mountain. This would make it the tallest attraction in Walt Disney World, beating Tower of Terror by just a half foot. Everest was deliberately made a half foot shy of the 200 foot mark, so the park would not have to add a red light beacon for planes atop it. Disney felt that would take away from the immersion of their attraction. The presentation of this ride is stunning. The snow-capped mountain range is awe-inspiring. The rockwork is meticulous, and the scale is downright incredible for a theme park attraction. One common misconception, though, about this ride is that the mountain is of Everest, but that's not exactly accurate. The barren peak in the distance represents Everest, but the main peak is of the Forbidden Mountain. The Forbidden Mountain is guarded by the Yeti, whom guests encounter at several points in the attraction. The first few encounters are through mural and projection, but the finale features a massive animatronic. Initially, this animatronic would lunge towards guests. This is known as A mode, and it made for quite the memorable finale. Unfortunately, the Yeti's frame split shortly after opening, and the figure's motion has been disabled to preserve its long-term integrity. Therefore, the ride now operates in B mode. The Yeti no longer moves. Instead, strobe lights flash in the final room to give the illusion the Yeti is moving. This effect has been nicknamed Disco Yeti by Disney fans. Joe Rohde, the lead Imagineer for Everest, said he would one day fix the Yeti, but he retired in 2021, and the Yeti still operates in B mode. While A mode is undeniably cooler, seeing a figure that large at any capacity is still a neat experience. For that reason, I don't think Disney will ever fix it. The cost-to-benefit ratio is just simply not there. Disney would have to close this ride and rip a hole in the mountain, which is a costly and timely endeavor. Most guests don't know the Yeti is broken, nor do they care. It makes much more sense for Disney to just keep the ride open in its current state. Located in the Asia section of the park, Everest has a long and detailed queue line. The ride's story is that you're visiting the Himalayan Escapes Travel Agency, who will take you on an expedition to the base of Everest. The queue line takes guests through a temple, a tea garden, and finally the Yeti Museum. The latter features nearly 8,000 artifacts. For as popular as this ride is, it usually is a manageable wait. In my visits, the ride's wait usually hovers around the 20 to 40 minute mark. It can spike in the afternoon, but the wait is usually minimal first thing in the morning or in the evening. And speaking of that, night rides on this coaster are really sweet. But there are 2 other ways to beat this line. The paid option is to use a Lightning Lane reservation in this attraction. For a while, this was classified as an individual Lightning Lane, but it's now included on the main service. The free option is to use the single rider line. As long as you don't mind riding alone and or splitting up your party, Everest's single rider line is usually no more than a 5 to 10 minute wait. Whichever line you're in, it will move at a brisk pace. Everest has an astronomically high capacity. The ride typically runs 4 to 5 trains at once. Each train features 6 cars. The first 5 cars seat 6 riders each in 3 rows of 2. The back car only seats 4 guests in 2 rows of 2. So the trains can accommodate a maximum of 34 riders each, and the ride's hourly capacity is estimated at over 2,000 riders per hour. When you reach the end of the line, a staff member will assign you a row, but if you ask nicely, they'll take seating requests. If you want the best visuals, ask for the front row. The forces are pretty similar row to row, but the back is slightly better for the largest drop. The trains on Everest look really nice. They look like old and rusty steam trains. These trains are super roomy, and all guests are secured by individual U-shaped lap bars. The faux engine is placed in the back, and whenever a train is dispatched, a whistle sounds and a cleverly placed vent under the load platform blows steam out the smokestack. Everest begins with a slow turn and a short lift. You then have a tranquil jaunt towards the main lift. This section doesn't offer any thrills, minus some very weak laterals up front, but it does have some beautiful visuals. The whole coaster is extremely well landscaped, and a nice touch is that almost all of the track hugs the ground. Barely any of it has visible supports. The second lift is the larger of the two. I believe this is where you're taken to the ride's max height of 112 feet or 34 meters. The lift goes through an ancient shrine dedicated to the Yeti before climbing atop the Forbidden Mountain. At the top, you have a small dip and navigate a few elevated turns. This leads to a dead end where you stop for a few seconds. You see the torn up rails in front of you, but a gap in the mountain lets you see just how high up you are. Although I prefer to focus on the bird on a stick that pops up to your left. At the same time, you hear the blustery wind and possible roars of the Yeti warning you danger is imminent. After a brief pause, you'll roll backwards. A switch track had rotated into place, so you head into the mountain this time. It is now time for the most intense part of the ride, the backwards helix. This element is extremely intense. Everest only pulls a max of 3 Gs, but getting sustained positives while spiraling backwards in near total darkness really messes with your senses. This part always makes me dizzy and start to gray out. I know I'm not the only one. This part leads into another show scene. You're stopped on an incline in a cave. You'll see a projection of the Yeti in front of you. He roars at you and rips up the track. Meanwhile, another track switch occurs for the action-packed second half. Once released, you roll outdoors and head down the ride's largest drop. It is an iconic 80-foot or 24-meter tall plunge. There's an observation platform looking directly at it. The drop is straight, and if you're in the back cars, you'll get some weak floater airtime here. This is immediately followed by a forceful turn. It starts low and fast, but it transforms into a giant S-hill that pierces through the mountain. You won't get any airtime or laterals here, but the second part of it occurs in the dark, augmenting the speed, especially because you'll hear the Yeti roaring once again. This leads into an outdoor helix. The front gets a jolt of laterals into the element, and then everyone gets decent and very sustained positive Gs through the rest of the maneuver. The helixes in Everest are no joke. You then head back in the mountain for the final show scene, your encounter with the Yeti. This is a weird quirk to say about a coaster, but I really wish you went through this part with less speed. You whiz past the Yeti in just a second. I wish I had more time to appreciate all the detail that went into this animatronic, even if it no longer moves, especially because the coaster bit here isn't particularly notable from a force perspective. You then hit the brakes and return to the separate unload platform, ending the 3,885 foot or 1,184 meter long coaster. The newer Vekoma coasters today are lauded for their smoothness, but the company was still making rough coasters when Everest was erected. But even in this manufacturer's darkest days, they could still make a reasonably smooth My Train. Then almost all the coasters they supplied for Disney were very smooth. So when you put those two together, Everest was extremely smooth when it opened. But after nearly 1.5 decades of heavy operation, you will feel a few bumps here and there. It's quite comfortable overall, but it can cause a minor headache if you marathon it because some of those bumps occur during the helixes, which are also pretty forceful, as I said. So what would I rate Expedition Everest? I would give this coaster an 8 out of 10. This is a great experience. You have wonderful theming during and around the attraction that tells a story. Then the coaster section isn't too shabby either. You have 2 strong helixes, most notably that indoor one taken in reverse. And the ride's largest drop is pretty fun too. All these factors make Everest one of the top Disney coasters out there. I still prefer Space Mountain and the brand new Guardians over Everest, but this ride beats all the other coasters at the Florida resort. So those are my thoughts on Expedition Everest at Disney's Animal Kingdom. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Are you a fan? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.